This weekend, me and Louie are in Dovedale. And as you can see, we've had a little bit of rain, so even the paths started to wash away. Dovedale is absolutely beautiful, obviously in the Peak District. The only problem with it is literally every man and his dog, not necessarily Whippet, will be here as well. I have been here in winter when there's been snow on the ground, and that's probably the best time to come if you don't particularly like large groups of people. I got to the car park for about 10:15 and there was already half of the car park already full. £3 to park, 20p to go for a pee. Then there's a shop trying to sell you something, and then you walk 50 yards down the path and there's a National Trust place trying to flog you a map, and then you get stuck in a queue of literally hundreds of people, coach parties. But if you push your way through and get a bit of a speed on, you can get in front of them. The path is easy to follow. You just basically come out the car park, turn right near the toilets and follow the river. We've had a couple of days of quite bad weather really. Strong winds from a storm coming across from America and some heavy rain, which is needed because we've had a very hot summer obviously. It's nice to see the rivers full again. The Peak District, if you compare to my other video where we did the Edale circuit on a really nice day, no problem at all. We probably saw 20 people over the day, just because it's just a bit harder away from the car park and there's a steep climb. But when you come to the Peak District and you come to a well populated place like this, that's well publicised, it changes the aspect and how I feel about the Peak District as well. It's great having national parks, and I know they're here for everybody, but do they all have to come on the same day? It's Martin Louie's Day. Maybe I should have booked it with the national parks and told them, one man and his Whippet's coming today, can you leave the rest of the people out? Well, at least until we're finished. Definitely fresh water coming out of there. We've lost a few people now, fewer people on the path. Now we've headed down a bit further down the path. There literally must have been 300 people in that car park, but we're probably about 2 miles in and can't see anybody in front of me and I can't really see anybody behind me now. So maybe that memo did get through to the national parks, that it's mine and Louie's day. And here we are at the other end of the path in Dovedale. Quite some years back I saw an article in a climbing magazine, I think it was, and the national parks, or the Friends of the National Park, was looking for some people to be speakers for the national park. So I had a read of this article. It was before email, so you just had to send a letter and say what the national parks meant to you. And I said something about it was my playground. I used to go climbing there, mountain biking. Anyway, I sent this letter off. I got invited to an interview. And it was in Malham and it was a weekday. And I remember saying to Joe, I don't know if I can really be bothered. Volunteer role, and the idea was that you would go to this interview, and if you passed this interview, you would be given a set of slides, that's how long ago it was, and a projector, and you'd be given the opportunity to go around the country, or around your area really, and speak to local groups and organisations about the national park and promote the national park. Anyway, it come to about a few days before this interview was to take place, and I actually had that day off, so I thought I'd go anyhow. I hadn't sent a letter back to say I wasn't attending, so I thought I'll go. Anyway, the interview was in Malham Cove, at the visitor centre at Malham Cove, and it was out of season, so it was quite bad weather. And by the time I got to this interview, I was about an hour late, and I got to reception, and they sent me through to a darkened room where somebody was doing a presentation. And as I walked in, trying to be quiet, I sneaked around the side and stood on somebody's foot and apologised for them in the dark and sat down. Anyway, when the lights come on, this presentation had finished, and they was thanking people for the presentation, and I'm sat there in my jeans and a t-shirt and a walking jacket. Everybody else is in suits, and I looked around to my left, and the person whose foot I'd stood on was Chris Bonington, who was one of my heroes, and he was the chair of the national park, and he was there to see the interviews. So this person who had been presenting sits down, and a woman came across to me and she says, "Are you here for the interviews for the national park speakers?" So I said, "Yes." So she says, "Okay, what's your name?" So I told her, and then she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you've missed your presentation slot. We'll have to put you on the end now." And at that point I could feel the blood draining from my face. Presentation? So I sat through another 5 people's presentation and slides, thinking rather embarrassed. And it got to my point. So I stood up in my jeans and t-shirt and totally off the cuff delivered a presentation about how important the national parks are for inner cities, people's development, mental health, etc, etc, etc. Totally winged it. Kept looking at my watch. I had 15 minutes. Finished on 15 minutes with any questions. Got a few questions and that was the end of the interview. So after all the presentations there was some more information given out about what was expected to do. We were shown the slides would be given and then went off to lunch, and I had the opportunity to sit next to Chris Bonington and apologise for standing on his foot, and left that day thinking that was slightly embarrassing in more than one aspect. And then about a week later I got a letter offering me the job, so I couldn't turn it down after all that. So I did about a year of odd dates and odd locations, speaking to WR groups and scout groups and round table groups. It was quite interesting really, and they all give a donation to the national parks and the national parks covered my expenses. So it was quite interesting in the end, but it all become too much. I was expecting to do 1 a week, but sometimes maybe 2 a week. So I sent the slides back and told them I'd done my bit. This is starting to feel a very long mile to the pub. I wonder if the pub's still open and it's not been converted to a cottage that I've already passed. I didn't take much notice of the sign. Pub 1 mile, and off we went. It was all Louie's idea, of course. Hey Lou, all your idea. Ooh, people crossing. This could mean we're coming to a village. This could be where the pub is. Nice little cottage there if anybody wants to move to Dovedale, Milldale. Look, pub. Doesn't look very open, but it says it's open. I don't really know how to describe that pub. It's a bit strange. It was a bit like something out of Royston Vasey. I don't know. Very, very strange. If you'd have filmed it, you'd have thought it wouldn't have been real. Anyway, the cider was okay. The only food they did was wraps. And a wrap was £8. And my wrap was cheese and chive, which basically consisted of a wrap, you'd expect that, a squirt of Primula cheese down the middle of a lettuce leaf, and a bit of coleslaw. I can honestly say I've never seen anything like that before in my life. At least I do Piper's crisps, and the cider was okay. What a strange place. All that said for that pub, I'd still go back. I want to take Jo there. She'll probably see this video before we go, but just for comedy value, I highly recommend you going to that pub. It's on my strong recommendation list. Have a wrap and have a pint of cider. Money well spent for the entertainment, if nothing else. Started to rain and everybody's running for the car park. Can't move this way. And back to the car park, which is still crammed full. Well, we're back at the camper van and it's chucking it down with rain. The car park's full. Louie is having a little bit of lunch. So he wasn't fortunate enough to have a wrap of prim little cheese, a lettuce leaf and some coleslaw for £8. He did have a crisp though. Anyway, we're back at the camper van after a very strange day. The sat nav brought me the longest route possible to Dovedale. Excuse you, Louie. We got here, the car park attendant just grunted at us, and I said, "I'm sorry, how much is it?" He said, £3. So I give him £3, and then I said, "What time does it close?" And he said, "There's a sign over there." He's obviously not having a good day. There's every man and his dog from every possible country you can think of here today. Got to the weirdest pub in the world, which was good. I quite like that. I'm going to go back there. It's weird but fantastic in a weird way. I highly recommend going there. And then we've just dashed past, pushing our way past everybody to get back to the camper van so we can get off and decide where we stay tonight. But it's slightly chucking it down out there now. This is where we spent the night. It's on the edge of the peaks at Bear Bridge Edge. So this is day 2 of our Peak District trip. Been to Dovedale, a nice walk around there. Spent last night in a wild camp at Bear Bridge, and now we're just having a morning walk, not far. But this is in contrast to the things I was saying yesterday about national parks being really busy. This is the northern side of the national parks, just outside of Sheffield. And it's about 10:30, quarter to 11. There's not many people here. You can get really busy, particularly in climbing season. But it's a nice sunny day, and it's absolutely amazing for taking photographs, cloud formation, hillside, and doing some video. You can see Louie's going by in the background. What are you doing, Louie? Particularly if you've got a character to film like him. I guess he wants to play. What, Lou? What do you have to say? Right, I think it's time to throw Louie's ball for him. And there ends another weekend in the Peak District. What is there to say? Dovedale, beautiful. Pick your time when you're going to go there if you don't like lots of people. Even when it's forecast bad weather, as you see, there's still lots of people that turn up there. North Peak's beautiful. It's the area I know best. Nice wild campsite just near Bear Bridge. It's all free of charge, your parking and everything, but you need to get there early because it can get busy. It's not too bad overnight and it's quite quiet. It's a bit exposed though if it's going to be windy, so you just need to bear that in mind. And a lovely walk around there. You can walk all the way down to Frogget. Loads of climbing areas around there. You can go across the Stanage. Bouldering, even if you're not into climbing, if you just want to have a scramble around, it's really good. But that's me and Louie done for this weekend. We'll pop home now for a shower, sort the gear out, and plan where we're going to go next.